Tak krásné dobré ráno, vážené dámy a vážení pánové. Já se jmenuji Vanda Černohorská a jsem dramaturgyní konference Komunikací k integraci mezinárodní perspektiva, lokální kontext. A dříve, než přejdeme k oficiálnímu zahájení konference, tak bych vás chtěla přivítat a zároveň vám sdělit pár praktických detailů. Vlastně v té velké místnosti za vámi je taková velká projekce, kterou si pak během dne můžete prohlídnout a v rámci které vlastně uvidíte podrobnější program a další informace týkající se jak konference, tak vlastně organizátora konference Integračního centra Praha a Magistrátu hlavního města Prahy. Zároveň jsem chtěla namotivovat ty z vás, kteří jsou a které jsou aktivní na sociálních sítích, aby vlastně z té naší dnešní konference tweetovali, případně teda postovali věci na dalších platformách, a to za použití támhletoho hashtagu Integrace 2019. Vlastně veškeré ty věci, které vy postnete na Twitter, se následně pak objeví právě na té velké projekční zdi, takže spolu můžeme tímto způsobem komunikovat i vlastně v tom prostoru těch sociálních sítích. My zároveň celou konferenci streamujeme živě na Facebooku, takže tímto zdravím i diváky a divačky, kteří a které se sem k nám nemohli dostavit, a i ty vlastně nějakým způsobem se mohou zapojit skrze právě ten hashtag. Takže už dost bylo technických detailů a já vlastně předám mikrofon Zdeňkovi Horvátovi, řediteli Integračního centra Praha, což je vlastně organizace, která dnešní konferenci pořádá.
Dobrý den všem. Musím mluvit do mikrofonu, nemůžu křičet, dobře, OK. Tak, v první řadě mě nesmírně těší, kolik vás tady je. Upřímně jsem vždycky asi naivně jako překvapen, kolik lidí tohle téma zajímá, ale prostě i dneska jsem opět znovu příjemně překvapen. Ale abych nezdržoval. Takže vážené dámy, vážení pánové, dovolte mi, abych vás uvítal jménem Integračního centra Praha při příležitosti konference Komunikací k integraci. Vítám mezi námi a děkuji všem, kteří se na konferenci podílejí jako mluvčí a panelisté, a děkuji všem, zejména týmu Integračního centra Praha, kteří se na přípravě konference podíleli. V neposlední řadě bych rád poděkoval Magistrátu hlavního města Prahy, zejména pak paní radní Třeštíkové a jejímu týmu za podporu a záštitu této akce. Program a témata této konference jsou nejen zajímavá, ale především aktuální, a to nejen pro Prahu, ale v národním i celoevropském měřítku. Tato konference je příležitostí ke sdílení zkušeností v širším měřítku, k diskuzi nad tématem integrace v souvislosti s veřejným i politickým prostředím, a to vše v mezinárodní perspektivě. Já pevně doufám, že tato setkání splní svůj účel a pomůžou nám všem v naší práci a podpoří úspěšnou integraci migrantů nejen do české společnosti. Ještě jednou děkuju a předal bych mikrofon panu zastupiteli Knitlovi.
Dobrý den, děkuji za slovo. Já jsem tady jako záskok v tuhle chvíli. Budu tady ještě jednou potom v panelu před obědem, takže tam se vypovídám do sytosti, takže vás nebudu zdržovat. Chtěl bych omluvit paní radní Třeštíkovou, která nemohla z pracovních důvodů dorazit. Není to tak, že by to bylo tak nezajímavé tady pro ní, ale skutečně ty důvody byly vážné. Sám jsem u toho dneska dopoledne byl, nebo ráno. Takže jsem to já, kdo vás tady vítá, teda jménem Magistrátu hlavního města Prahy. Chtěl bych poděkovat Institutu plánování a rozvoje hlavního města Prahy za to, že tady můžeme být v tomto krásném prostoru, který pořád objevuji, jak chodím na různé akce. A děkuji taky Integračnímu centru Praha, tom, jak říkal pan ředitel, které hodně energie věnovalo tomu, abyste tady mohli dneska být a aby ta konference byla co nejvíc smysluplná a něco nového vám přinesla. Jak jsem říkal, budu mluvit později. Pár poznámek. Migrace je něco, co provází lidské dějiny od nepaměti. V různých intenzitách se nám to vrací, v důležitosti ovlivňuje to naše životy a integrace k tomu patří. A tady v Praze, kde máme vlastně tu většinu cizinců z České republiky, tak se tomu hodně věnujeme. Doufám, že dostatečně podporujeme organizace, které pomáhají cizincům v jejich integraci. K tomu se asi vrátíme potom v panelové diskuzi, ale je důležitá ta role politika v tuhle chvíli i v tom, že tady stojím já a že vás vlastně tady vítám a ukazuji, že pro nás je to skutečně důležité téma a budeme se rádi účastnit diskuzí s odborníky, s vámi, budeme vám naslouchat a pokud budete mít cokoliv, já se to tady budu dneska osobně zapisovat, cokoliv, čím bychom vám mohli být víc užiteční k tomu, aby ta integrace nejen na území hlavního města Prahy úspěšně pokračovala, tak přijďte k nám, mluvte s námi. Já myslím, že teďka situace na magistrátu je dobrá v tom, že jsme otevření, nasloucháme, můžeme se s vámi scházet a bavit se o těch problémech, co máte a jak vás můžeme podpořit nebo čím vám můžeme pomoci. Nebudu dál víc mluvit, předám tady slovo dál a těším se na panelu před obědem, to je ten důležitý panel. Díky.
Tak já děkuji oběma úvodním řečníkům za jejich slova a ani já už nebudu dále zdržovat a je mou milou povinností představit hlavního řečníka naší konference, kterým je Dani de Torres. Dani de Torres za námi přiletěl z Barcelony, je to ředitel španělské sítě interkulturních měst, poradce Rady Evropy v interkulturních otázkách a autor takzvané Anti-Rumour strategie. Dani přednese úvodní přednášku, následně bude prostor vlastně na nějaké otázky, odpovědi i z publika a po té jeho úvodní přednášce vlastně tady na stage se k němu připojí 3 odbornice ze zahraničních měst, které s ním budou debatovat o tom, jaké jsou trendy a jaké strategie se v současné době využívají vlastně v jiných zahraničních městech. Takže já bych vás poprosila všechny o potlesk pro pana Daniho de Torrese.
Good morning. Sorry, good morning. Thank you. First of all, thank you to the organizers. Thank you to the Integration Center of Prague. Thank you, especially Wanda, because I think you're great at communication to newcomers. You know, I think it's the best conference in which I've got the most useful and practical information before coming here. Thank you to the city of Prague as well. There's one person I don't want to thank, is the graphic designer who decided to put my face there. That puts me much more pressure than usual. But I'm so happy to be here, and I realize I've got some good friends also, and really inspiring people that we will have the opportunity afterwards to learn and to share some experiences. I'm just gonna split my presentation in 2 sections. The first one, it's gonna be more about some reflections and ideas about one dimension of the general topic of communication and migration. I'll talk much more about diversity and migration, but I'm going to focus on the complexities of building, let's say, alternative narratives about diversity than those who really focus more always on the negative dimension here, okay? So on the last 15 years, and since I was appointed Commissioner for Immigration at the City of Barcelona from 2007 and 2011, I realized the importance of communication and how many people were really aware about this importance, and they were putting a lot of resources and investment to really learn how to have an impact on public's perceptions. And they were really realizing that they could get some benefits by really influencing the public's perceptions. On the other side, many of the people that were working on the ground were working on the integration areas, not just from the local, let's say, administration, but from schools, in the health sector, from mediators to teachers, etc. But also local politicians, we were not giving that much importance to the communication dimension. I think we all can agree that the increase of diversity in our societies brings more complexities. That's something I think we all can agree. And I think it's very important to not to hide, not to avoid complexities. But not many people would agree in our society that diversity also brings a lot of new opportunities. And depending on how we deal with these two options, we will increase complexity, so we will increase the opportunities. And I realized when I was commissioner in Barcelona that perceptions and attitudes about diversity were almost as much as important that the work we were doing in the ground. I've been in many cities, in many different countries. I've been in places with very small level of migration, but public perceptions were that they were being invaded, were that the most relevant problem that they had in the city was the invasion of refugees and migrants. And they were like in 2%. At the same time, there were like cities with 30%, in which there were not such great of paranoia about diversity. So it's not that reality doesn't matter, reality matters a lot. But if we don't really deal with perceptions and we just leave others the space to really invest time and effort to try to influence those perceptions, we realize that many part of the work that we are doing is not just, it's not just that it's not understood, it's that, it doesn't really pay much attention for many people who they have a feeling that there are a lot of negative things going on. And when we realize this, it's like, wow. I arrived in Barcelona and said, listen, we need to lead the debate. We need to occupy the agenda, the public discourse here. We cannot just let others occupy this space, because otherwise then we are reactive. We're just going after that. And they say, well, no, we prefer, until that moment, like many other politicians and people I met in many cities, saying, well, it's a bit risky that we lead this debate, this discourse, because people, feel that we are doing things for migrants, for diversity. And people don't, we need to work a lot on the ground if we are in favor of integration process, in a better living together in diversity, but we cannot talk too much about that. And that was like, okay, if we don't talk, who will talk about this? Others will talk. And that's why, well, I think we need to change this. We need to lead. But how you do? You need, of course, you need to know how. And that's what I want to share with you. Some of the lessons learned, some of the ideas of the criteria that I realized all these years, that at least are relevant, that we need to pay attention to them when we want to build alternative narratives. So, okay, okay. Yeah, I think we know all the risks of the increase of those narratives that just focus on the negative, that they just focus on simple, direct, emotional messages this old trend in our history on putting emotions, strong and close identities, and also this quite easy option to blame specific group about all the anxieties, the insecurities, the complexities of our social and economic and or cultural issues in our society. It's true that in the last, let's say, 10 years, it's a trend on the last, it's longer than that, but in the last 10 years, we've seen an increase in many countries, not just in Europe, about this support to discourses that really focus on prejudices, simple and direct messages, blaming some groups about all the bad things that happen in our society. These have a lot of risks, as we know, because this is not new. This is as old as the human nature. Because one of the main ideas I want to share with you is that I realized that when we want to communicate in a different way, many times we were failing. One of the reasons about this failure was that we were not taking into account the role of stereotypes and prejudices, and we didn't understand how they are created and what we can do to reduce them. And we all use stereotypes, we all hold prejudices. That's a very important, starting point, because I've seen many times this trend of many people thinking, okay, we are the good ones, we are the right who are right, then there are the ignorant and racist, and who have a lot of prejudices, and we need to show them from this kind of moral superiority how things work, what is the truth, and how bad they are, and they need to realize about this. This is somehow that it's more common than we think. I think the first point is to accept that we all have prejudices, and that prejudices play a very important role. Our brain has a very easy capacity to respond, to reinforce our prejudices. Now we'll see somehow why. But prejudices are a mix of emotions, sociocultural elements that influence the creation of prejudices. It has to do a lot about power relationships. It has to do, of course, about culture, media, family, friends, education, etc. But also about more things, also about personality. When we do these trainings on the Anti-Rumours, later we'll talk about this, we ask people where prejudices come from. And if I ask you this, many people would say what I say, like our context, our education, the media, parents. But then if I ask you, do you think you have the same prejudices than your brothers and sisters? Many people say no. And they say, oh, why not? So it's very important that we understand that when we want to communicate, we understand not just how complex it is trying to deal with prejudices, but also to understand that our brain, let's say, cheats us, because we have a tendency, our brain has a tendency to look for self-esteem and for surviving. And sometimes I realize about this really naive approach about saying, oh, people are believing things that are not true. So then what we need to do is just spread the truth. Just give them the truth, like, hey guys, this is not true. The truth is this. How many times you heard, I don't know, that migrants taking our jobs? Even if you have data that shows that this is not exactly like that there are a lot of examples of how this is not exactly true like this, although you cannot hide complexities, maybe there are some areas in the labor market, there are some tensions, etc., etc. But even if you want to counteract this, it's totally proven. If you say, no, this is not true because look at this data, people don't stop thinking about that, believing that. We don't look at reality and change the way we think. We adapt reality the way we think. That's very important now in social media. Our brain is looking all the time for information that supports our previous ideas. This is how our brain works. We want to feel cool with ourselves. And it's also a kind of chemical thing. Our brain connections are looking for information to say, hey, what I'm thinking, it's good. And any information that says, hey, sorry, I'm challenging your belief because, you haven't paid attention to this argument. We tend to forget about this, to ignore, or just to challenge the source and say, oh, come on, this is coming from the city of Prague, municipality. How are you gonna trust, this? Or, oh no, this is from this academy, all these people, or is an NGO or is whatever. But we all have this. And what I realized, it was more complicated. It was not just understanding this, but that people make the effort to look yourself in the mirror and start by yourself, saying, okay, I'm criticizing this, I think there are a lot of prejudices, but what about me? I think we need to try to reduce prejudices. Should we maybe start with ourselves first? That's a very interesting exercise. Just saying this, the complexities of building alternative narratives. If we leave the space in the political and social agenda for those who are spreading those narratives that are not just negatives, are really intentioned, dealing to reinforce some prejudices, dealing to increase the polarization of society, and the risks are really high. But what I found is when I go to many cities and say, hey, what are you doing? What about the narratives here? I'm like, okay, this is too complicated. And, or whatever is political correctness, and then it's not cool anymore, this kind of political correct thing, or because there is the courage to really go out and provide a different discourse about this. It's a fear of the elections, because we think that maybe voters, electors will not support discourses that are a bit more like kind of positive about this. But many times I also saw the incapacity, people who had the will to construct alternative narrative, but didn't know how. And also found a really main weaknesses is dispersion. And I come to this again. But first, what are some of the most critical barriers? One typical trend is to accept the frame of reference that the negative narrative is really working for many years to consolidate in society. This is really like the many of you know or have read the Don't Think of an Elephant from George Lakoff. And he was saying this thing. It's like, if you want to build an alternative narrative, don't start by accepting the basics of the narrative that you want to substitute, let's say. But that happens a lot. It's like, oh, link with migration and insecurity, link with migration and jobs, live with migration. Okay, I'm not saying we don't have to talk about it. We need to talk about reality, and we need to pay attention to many things. But we want to come from different values, from different ideas and principles, and then build from that and talk about all those issues but from a different vision. If what I'm doing is just being reactive all the time, that this is probably one of the main weaknesses of this kind of efforts that we're doing when we try to communicate about migration and diversity. We're being reactive. We leave the others the floor, we leave them to set the frame, and then we go there, oh no, this is racist. Oh no, you are not talking about the opportunities. Oh no, this is not true. The truth is blah, blah, blah. And it's not very successful about how many people get excited by this kind of discourse. So being proactive, it's one of the most important attitudes we need here when we communicate. But a second one, I think those who have learned a lot how to design the narratives, now thinking about the negative ones, they have done a lot about listening people. And I think let's say, on the other side, I still think many times there's a mistake of saying, no, let's communicate, let's decide our discourses without really listening actively people moods, people feelings, people insecurities, people anxious. And I remember a project in Utrecht. I'm advising a project on welcome refugees on the city of Utrecht. They decided to put an emergency shelter in a neighborhood. And there were, at the beginning, the first reactions, criticism about, why are you putting this shelter of refugees here now? You know, and the city said, okay, let's spend some time talking to these neighbors, listening to them. What's going on? What is behind this criticism? And I think this is a very important thing. We know our brain has a very special and easy trend to accept those discourses that just blame specific group, go to really basic emotions. But many times, what is behind that feeling are other worries. Are worries about housing, about labor market, about stability, about security, about your kids, moving, etc. So that what happened there, and the neighbor said, listen, our kids, they have troubles to get, our youth, to get good housing. We don't have money for training ourselves, so adapt ourselves to the labor market changes. So what the city decide? Okay, if these are the key issues that these people really are concerned about, this is not about the refugees. This is about really direct and human issues that we all need to take care of and pay attention. So they decide that the building of the shelter, it will be mixed with refugees and cheaper rent for youth from the neighborhood, who at the same time will be somehow involved in the community organization of the center. And also they provide training, free training, to both refugees and neighbors on English and entrepreneurship and other topics. And they will mix there. Well, I'm just top here about this project. It's called Plan Einstein in Utrecht, but if you are interested, it's a very inspiring and interesting project there. So, listening. And again, I always put the example afterwards when I talk about the Anti-Rumours. If you have a friend, a relative, someone, colleague, who says, okay, Dani, since migrants are taking all the social benefits, this is a disaster, we cannot just continue like this, we need to change this, these people cannot come if they don't have employment, or if they are unemployed, they need to leave, or whatever. If your reaction is like, oh, how can you be so racist, you're ignorant, stupid, and racist. If this is your reaction, you're not going to get anything. Well, yeah, you will get worse. Probably that person will close into the conviction, and maybe you will be strengthening that feeling that you don't realize about reality, and that you just blame people for their ideas and position. And we realize it's not that this is not working. It is quite, inefficient, and it's really bad, because I put you an example that we do in the Anti-Rumours training. If you go to your place and you share the elevator to get to your flat, and you have 2 minutes with the neighbor, and the neighbor says something like this, that happens to me many times in my neighborhood in Barcelona, where there is quite an important community of Chinese people. And they say, like, hey, Dani, since all these Chinese people came here, the neighborhood is not, now it's not the same, this is so bad. And you have not a strong relationship, but you have some emotional relationship with this person. Your kid just sometimes meets in the last 8 years. So what you do, you have 2 minutes there. And 90% of the people just shut up. And, You know, it's like, okay. Well, some people may agree, and then they start like, oh yes, you know, blah, blah. But now we're thinking about people who don't, you know, agree of saying, okay, we want to reinforce this discourse about the Chinese being something really bad for our neighborhood. But if you say, okay, if you don't say anything, you're being some kind of ally of the circle of these rumors. So if you react in an emotional way, just blaming people for making those comments at the first time, we realize this is not really changing anything. Although some people who cross really some red lights, then somehow you really need to stop something and being more pushing. But in many daily comments we hear and we share in our daily lives, this is not like this. So seduction, and we use an indicator saying, when it happens to you in a conversation like this, one of the most important indicators of success is that you are able to talk again to that person next time about the same topic. Imagine that. That's really complicated. Say, okay, we need to communicate in a way that the other person don't feel that he's being like, you know, patronized and blame and tension all the time. But the goal is to introduce something that promotes some kind of more critical thinking, some doubt, some reaction, saying, I don't agree, but saying that in a way that the other person is like something, okay, another political correct, teaching me the blah, 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 I never talk again about this. No, he's like, the guy is not that agree. And it's true that he asked me a question that I had some troubles to answer. So anyway, what I'm saying, this example on the elevator is very daily life, but even in institutional communication campaigns, we find sometimes from NGOs, municipalities, actors, that sometimes are really like pushing, you know, it's like this is, okay, this is anti-racist, everything, you are racist, if you are racist, blah, blah, blah. So many people say, okay, I'm not racist, this campaign is not for me, that's cool, I'm okay with the anti-racist, so I even don't pay attention to the campaign because it's not about me. If I'm a really activist anti-racist, I feel really, yeah, you know, I'm with this, yeah, great. But if I thought my prejudice is like majority of population, and you don't feel targeted by that, or you feel targeted in a way that really makes you like, it's very complicated we get the goals that we're looking for here. Another learning that we know, I mean, what I'm saying is quite a lot of common sense, but as I will explain later, we check this in practice on this anti-Rumour strategy. But another traditional idea is like, as I was saying, okay, people need more information. We need to explain more things, what we do, some kind of truth, you know. If there is people thinking many ideas, beliefs that we know are not exactly like this, and we have information, as I said before, just spread the cold information. But we know this is, it's not enough, and it's not working that much. As I said, we don't pay attention to information in the same way. We ignore that information that don't agree with our beliefs. So we need to include emotions here. We need to include the more social psychology and neuroscience know-how to really get into what we expect, that people react somehow to our efforts on communication. As I said before, when my mom said, hey, Daniel, all the people in the school are getting social benefits are people from migrant families. So if you say, no, Mom, I checked data, it's just 15%. Even if it would be 90%, then you will have to explain about it is about resources, thing, whatever. But in that case, it was just 15%. It's not 90% like you and many people think. But my mom didn't change it. Oh, sorry, Danny, it's 15. I thought it was 90%. Now you told me. Now I understand. Thank you for, you know, for this. I'm not thinking that anymore. It doesn't work like that. So how do we include the emotional dimension in a way that people can really provoke a kind of change in the way that you are sure about what you're saying? and including some elements to question yourself. I want to say that one of the main goals of what we understand by communication, by building alternative narratives, is not just spreading static information. It's about promoting critical thinking. I think the best way to minimize the impact of also other narratives, it's not just to substitute them by alternative narratives, which is important, but also the main goal should be promoting critical thinking at all levels. But what I'm saying is that this has an impact. Even if you have a communication in which there are just few messages that look just to reach a really wider audience, or if you include that in your work in the education system through communication campaigns that are more based on the face-to-face interactions and not just on messages that they just last for a while. I'm going to get back to this again later. But critical thinking, it's something that when we communicate, we need to understand that the impact of our communication will be much higher if we provoke something. And also will be much higher if we also focus on promoting positive interaction among different people, backgrounds, etc. I mean, communication, it can have a really strong power. But in our case, on the complexities of those who want to build a more cohesive, inclusive, and a society in which diversity is not seen as a threat, and we don't want to reinforce the fears, but we want to deal with complexities, but at the same time we want to be inclusive. We need to focus on interaction. If we don't promote urban areas, spaces, opportunities for real and positive interaction, the communication campaigns won't have the same kind of impact. And communication have to be a complement of real policies and practices. Only through communication, what we understand as communication is sending messages, we're not going to get the impact that we're looking here. We need to include emotions. We need to put more the emphasis on similarities, not on differences. We need to build on inclusive identities. In front of those who identify identities, something really static, really close, we need to reivindicate the plurality also of identities and the possibility of changing and how we can find new ways to move beyond the us and them and build a wider us. This thing, we'll put some examples. But before that, another important weakness of many communication strategies that I've seen in many cities in different countries, when you say, okay, we're doing this campaign. And the first thing is like, okay, what are the goals of the campaign? Well, we just want to, I don't know, celebrate diversity. We want to raise awareness about integration. Or we want to, I don't know, attract people to a new project we're doing. Okay, so the goals may be different. And many times we don't spend enough time to identify the goals we're looking for. It's not the same that you want to build more inclusive identities and you want to use this communication strategy to contribute to that building more inclusive identities. Because there are some criteria that are more efficient than others to really deal with inclusive identities. But if you don't get this know-how and you don't use with the, communication agencies that sometimes we contract to do the campaigns, then we're missing the point. But also, depending on the goals, what target? Sometimes we tend to think that any message is good for everyone, Like when you say this message, okay, yes, diversity, blah, blah, I say, okay, this is good for kids, for, adults, for unemployed people, for people from the academia, from politicians, from blah, blah. No, we need to really think, who are the targets? What do we want? Who we want to reach? And what is the context? What are the best messages, or the most efficient messages? I've seen changes, just amazing changes on changing, the kind of content that you're just trying to share. and then who are the best messengers as well. You may have the best communication content, and then, you know, just the messengers are the ones who fail. And then you choose different messengers, and then just suddenly the young people in those neighborhoods with these rap singers and people from the art, people from different backgrounds, suddenly got the attention of everybody. And they are sending the same message that maybe the deputy mayor was saying 2 days ago. And maybe they were not paying too much attention to that discourse. So when we communicate, sometimes we don't spend enough time to think, why are we communicating and how is the most effective way to do that? And one of the problems is that when we want to think about the alternative narratives, okay, we know about this simplicity. You know, our brain also loves simplicity. You know, this is like this, good and bad, black and white, and these are to blame. Ah, this is so easy. And it's great because it feels you like, relax, you know. Okay, just now I know this, and it doesn't mean many effort for me to really understand this. It's like pam, 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 direct emotion, heart reaction. Mine is like, okay, and I can guilt these people. So if we want to build alternative messages, we can make two mistakes, which is very complicated. One is just counter that with long and complex explanations and statistics and data who nobody pays attention. Or we can do the other mistake, trying to be as simple as that and say, okay, yeah, so what we have to do is to find really short, really sticky messages that have the same impact. Well, it doesn't really exist that much. I mean, there are some slogans that are really cool and that really help, but trying to find that impact just on really small bullet points goes to the emotions. It's not, because our brain is much more open to accept those messages than the ones we think, because they're more complex. It needs more effort. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to make an effort to find bullet points, sticky messages that complement other efforts, communicative and in the ground. Because it has to be a currency here in what you're communicating and what you're doing. Because this is also a different, another aspect. But again, simplicity versus complexity. We cannot pretend to counter, they are taking our jobs, they don't want to integrate, they are a threat to our identity, with saying, no, this is not true because the labor markets in the 19th century has been increasing data, and if you look at the 10 years and blah, blah, blah. Okay, who cares? But you cannot just neither find the alternative sentence. You know, you cannot do that. But you need to understand that you need to adapt your message to the different contexts, to the different targets, to the different channels. It's not social media, it's not a workshop, it's not the same. So you need to invest to find the most efficient messages for each context. And there is something that some people are really good at. They manage to get consensus. People quite different, organization, political, media. They find consensus on few messages, and they repeat again and again and again and again, because they know how our brain works. Our brain works for repetition. If you repeat something many times, it's true. It doesn't matter if you even think it's not true. At the end, it's true. So if after 200 times you've listened that migrants take our jobs, if you manage to get someone in a table and convince that person at that present moment that maybe that is not as true, because it's much more complex and this is not true in this case, even if you manage to convince that person, it's been demonstrated that after 6 months, he will again believe migrants take our jobs. So it's not just winning a specific battle here. It's like being able to consolidate also a narrative. And repetition is crucial. But what happens? There is such a dispersion. I always say, like, on the Anti-Rumours, we try to get a lot of people in the same boat. And that's one of the most complex things to manage. You know, we got governments, we have NGO, we have a lot of civil society actors. And sometimes each of us thinks that you've got the right project and thing and approach, and the other is not good enough because the other is not blah, blah, blah. Oh, you have all these prejudices among different actors. And at the end, what happens is that there is no really, you know, shared effort to really agree on a minimum consensus on some things and really join forces on that. I just want to finish this part, and I just focus a few minutes on the anti-rumors, on saying creativity. It's so fundamental here. Creativity, it has to be everywhere, not just on the person who is designing a message. It's creativity in terms of how do we understand local policies, how do we understand social participation. It's creativity in how we manage to reach wider audiences, to being in places that we never go. Just thinking out of the box also about this common thing. But just an example, it's about the anti-rumors, but I was in Limerick in Ireland, and we were doing this training on anti-rumors. And when we finish, we'll have the training and say, okay, there's nobody in the street. Where is everybody? And they say, well, most of them, they're in the pub, because the pub now it's time, but this is not just like single men having the drinks. It's like also kind of family thing, you know, it's a kind of civic center somehow, you know, like we meet there and then we have to do some activities, whatever, we meet there. And then I was thinking, okay, how much money sometimes we spend, I was thinking about Barcelona, organizing, you know, these kind of diversity events in the neighborhood just to gather 120 people there and doing some mural things and workshops, and yeah, that's great. But then you say, hey, why if instead of putting so much efforts to create new spaces of interaction, why don't we just go where interaction is taking place already? Why don't we go to the pubs and do something and involve the pub owners? And that was kind of, okay, we do this in public libraries, we do this in museums, we do this in other cultural and sports centers. But we need to increase, you know, a lot of malls, commercial malls, full of thousands of people, hospitals. I'll come back to this later, but we also need to think about, you know, where are people interacting, and who are the places in which a lot of these prejudices and rumors are created, are shared. So let's try to include that. Okay, this is a shared responsibility. This is not just a government thing. This is not something that, okay, let's see if this politician will find finally the best integration and communication thing. No, we know this is about all of us. And this is not something that we can separate and say, okay, I'm in a government, I'm going to have some communication thing, and I'm going to change many things thanks to my vision. But neither is a big NGO thinking that with my funding I've got here, I'm going to find the best campaign and I'm going to change, you know. No, this is about finding ways to cooperate and to build something together among very different actors to have more impact. Otherwise, we're a joke for me. You know, like we have many different small projects or campaigns that they last 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. No, this is a long-term thing. And if we don't join forces, we won't manage to get real impact at all. So this is one of the main messages. I mean, it's like here, we need to leave some prejudices apart and try to find the common elements that many different actors in civil society can share. Let's start by political commitment. Yes, that's true. We need political commitment here, and that's very important if we think in terms of public policies and political discourse. Of course, there are many different cities, and we are thinking now at the local level, but we start with those cities who show political commitment. Then we need to influence on those who don't. But if we don't start with those who already have the commitment, then, you know, okay, political commitment. But again, we cannot just say, let's start a strategy from the city. At time to time, we'll check with some actors of civil society. No. From the very beginning, we need to share this. We need to create the spaces for debate, dialogue, exchange, and mutual co-creation of things. Otherwise, we won't feel this is part of us. I've seen some campaigns that with the same quality, let's say, of the content, managed to have much more impact, just because many different actors in the city felt that they were very important part of that. And that's when a school say, hey, I want to be part of that. Just bring this to my school. You know, the theater center of the city say, hey, this is cool. This is a city thing. This is not this government thing. This is not this NGO thing. This is the city thing. So I want to be part of that. And then the impact just multiplies with the same budget, because there are a lot of people who have some budget and they need content. And when they find something that it's cool and they think it's important and relevant and they are sensibilized, they want to use it. So, local level. Okay, very quickly, because I've been talking too much already. I just wanted to point out some of the elements we need to take into account when we think about building narratives on diversity, migration, and in the year 2000 in Barcelona, we're living 50,000 foreigners in the city with foreign nationality. In the year 2008, it was 300,000. Okay, so in 8 years, the increase was quite relevant. On that year, we decided to design this intercultural strategy, thinking on the city of the next 15 years. And then we designed through a participative process this strategic plan for the future. And one of the 10 axes of lines of work was this idea of reducing prejudices at the city level. And one of the main tools was developing this anti-rumors strategy. But I really want to emphasize that the goals of the anti-rumors strategy were under more global goals of the intercultural approach of the whole city. Without that umbrella, it couldn't be possible to have designed that specific anti-rumors strategy. Of course, okay, we want to prevent discrimination, we want to promote inclusion and positive interaction, but yes, we want to make the most of diversity as well. And that's, I think, very important from some approaches, that it's all the time avoiding the worst to happen. Yeah, that's really important, because we are talking here about sometimes really human rights, we're talking about very, important issues about discrimination, exclusion, etc., etc. But we know that diversity brings opportunities. It depends on how we manage to create an environment in which that may happen. And I think in the global world we live in, those cities who manage to get those opportunities from diversity, they have a very important position here. What it's not, the anti-rumors. I'm saying this because we've been changing. But at the beginning, there was this idea that, okay, let's identify some rumors that exist in our city. Let's gather some information and let's just disseminate this information. Okay, as I said before, we know this is not working. So this is not about this, and later I will say that this also can backfire a lot. This is the formula of rumors that two psychiatrists in the States after the Second World War were really doing a lot of research about the nature of rumors. But why we choose rumors? Again, it was a consequence of those reflections. If you say we're going to do an anti-racist or anti-discrimination program to raise awareness about diversity and cohesion in our city, not much people get excited about this. When we were presenting the intercultural strategy with all the media in the city, and I mentioned the anti-rumors strategy, all the journalists that were almost sleeping at that point, suddenly they just left their pens and they just say, hey, what? Anti-rumors? Rumors? What are the rumors? They say, no, we want to create the Anti-Rumour agent kind of thing. And they were like, what? We want to know about this. So we just realized that just the name make people more interesting about the thing. So we still didn't know what to do with that name, but we found the name. We had some ideas saying, listen, if our target is not the minority that is racist and it's proud to be racist, if our target is more the majority who has a more ambivalent and ambiguous approach to diversity, we cannot go with the racism thing in which people don't feel target. But rumors are so human, are so common. We all are part of rumors. We all have been victims of rumors. So people, we realize, were much more open to talk about other issues like prejudices, discrimination, or racism if we start talking about rumors, because they were more open to share. Yeah, I also share sometimes rumors about the Chinese in my neighborhood. Okay, it's good to start recognizing that we all share these kind of rumors, but then are we aware about the negative consequences of sharing these rumors, for example? Have you really think about this, or what impact are we having? Well, so the formula of rumors that these people study, they say the strength of a rumor, it's equal to the importance of the topic for me, the relevance. If it's about something I care about, jobs, if there's a rumor dealing with jobs, I'm going to feel really, or I feel my identity is being a bit threatened. If there's a message about my identity, I'm going to be really open to that rumor. This is for the ambiguity of the information. Okay, there is no real source. There is no objective way to check if this is true or not, blah, blah, blah. This is really important for the rumor. But then what works as a minimization of the rumor? It's our critical thinking capacity, a part of many other things. But I just want to reinforce this because one of the most effective way to challenge rumors is promoting critical thinking, not just spreading the truth that many people think it's the best way. So, starting in Barcelona, we've been working in more than 20 countries. And just to say that when a city wants to start with this approach, they have to do some kind of diagnosis. What are the hot issues in the city right now about diversity? Is it about something about relate to some areas? It's about the labor market. It's about identity issues. It's about security issues. It's about not migration. It's about some different diversities. There's a totally intersectional diversity issues here, mixing social, mixing gender, mixing skills, mixing origin, religious. So we need to avoid identifying migration all the time. This is not just about migration. Imagine with Roma in Spain and many countries, imagine so many other issues like gender issues. They cross all the time with our prejudices, all the time are connected. We cannot just separate. This is about migration and this is about not, because they are totally crossing all the time. So we need to do diagnosis. Then we need to identify some priorities. We need to create a network, as I was saying before. If we have schools, if we have public libraries, if we have museums, if we have some small companies, if we have NGOs, universities, and the local administration working together to reach a common goal, that will be much more relevant and strong than just a single project by a single agent. And in Barcelona, there's been 2 changes of government since we start with this. And each government has kept this strategy, and it's been even increasing. Why? Because if you're a mayor and you start in a new city, and then you say, what is this anti-rumors thing? Okay, we're gonna stop doing this. And then you realize, well, there are 30 schools working on this. There are all the public libraries of the city working on this. There are even the Association of Local Commerce working on this. You know, we had some companies, we have the university. And also, it's the best practice for the Council of Europe is recognizing mail-based. Okay, maybe we can just continue. I'm saying if you don't agree. If you agree, that's cool. So building the network is very important. Training anti-rumor agents, it may sound sometimes in some countries a bit weird, but at the end it's about providing practical tools and skills to better confront prejudices in your daily life. If you are a teacher, if you're a politician, if you're an employee in a company, if you're a student, we need skills to really be active in our daily life, to not to shut up on that elevator when someone says something that you say, okay, I don't agree. I think this is not like this, but I have no idea what's the most efficient way to react to this comment. So then we have the implementation of Anti-Rumour's actions and campaigns. We have the evaluation of impact. I'm going to finish because I want to leave you some time for this. Just to finish with some pictures and images. As I said, an anti-rumor strategy also includes communication, of course. It's not just about working on the ground all the time. We need logos and slogans and whatever. Just an example, this is in Jerez, in Andalusia, in the south of Spain. Even choosing the slogan of the campaign in a participative way, tables with local police, youth, NGOs, sports, culture department, politicians, working together to find a slogan that somehow could synthesize that idea that we want to seduce and not blame. And this is a city thing. At the end, they put the rumor in Jerez. It has no art. Art is linked to flamenco. It's an expression in many people, local people feel really attached to it. So, and people feel like, hey, this is a cool thing. It's kind of humor, it's positive, but it's not like blaming. Anyway, so communication also means being present in many events. It also means developing innovative tools, cartoons, apps, photo calls, songs, rumors, marketing things. It also has to deal with that, but not only, of course. This is a complement. As I was saying before, what is the goal of your action? The goal of the marketing, let's say, actions is not to change people's minds. It's to complement all the other actions that you're doing to promote this critical thinking. You want to communicate to people that you are committed to this and you put this as a priority, political and social. Also, you communicate people that, hey, if you are interested to join, please join us. If you want to open a debate, you can help this, but you're not going to change the minds with a communication like this campaign. We have, of course, all the media, social media, but attracting new alive. How do we get people from the arts, from artists, from big companies? This is Siemens in Erlangen in Germany. These are the sports teams engaged in different cities on the strategies. Promoting knowledge and critical thinking. Imagine I was saying creativity, this is in our friend from Greece. This is in Patras, the prison of Patras. After providing a training on anti-rumors skills, someone said, hey, we can do this in prisons here because we are doing similar training on awareness, but this can be very useful in prisons. That many prisons start doing anti-rumors thing. This is in Montreal, workshops in different areas. Well, and let me just mention this. Do you know what is this? This is the blank, what would you put on table for lunch? This agreement between Association of Restaurants and the city to provide anti-rumors arguments and debates in the lunch tables in different neighbors. So thousands of people having lunch on top on this. So I was saying creativity is important. Participative awareness, going where people are, using what already exists. Don't create from zero, using all the work is being done in all the cities. You know, this is also the Kids Carnival in Patras. Each year they organize this and they decide, hey, why don't we use the rumors thing? So they spend months with debates in the schools. And at the end there is the communication action. But the communication action, it's not the superficial action. It's the result of a much more intense and work promoting critical thinking. Rap singers, public libraries, local artists. Well, promoting positive interaction, as I was saying. Direct confrontation. If we develop skills and we know that we need to counter those prejudices when we meet them in our daily life, we need to do that. And we need to create opportunities to check our skills. And this is, for example, like in hospitals in Tenerife, they did this anti-rumors checking, health checking. So you go there, you just fill a survey, and then depending on the results, you get your pills. And your pills are just the anti-rumors information and some sweet things. That was a very just communication action, but all the TVs and the radios were about this thing. That allows you to open the debate and talk about schools, about politicians, etc. Okay, I'm gonna finish. I want to reinforce the idea of creativity, and also, okay, local level is crucial here. It's where interaction takes place. It's where we can build these networks. It's where we can talk about diversity in a different way, but we cannot just renounce to influence other areas in which are crucial. If we work at the educational level and you say, okay, yes, some schools, they want to do workshops on anti-rumors, but then you identify that the main need here is training teachers, and maybe you don't have the competences to do that. Then you need to go, in our case, to the regional government and say, listen, we are doing a lot of workshops, teachers are great, but they want to do this, and we think this is important. So we want to influence changing even laws, even things. So we need to think big in terms of not being happy with our workshops. No, this is about trying to influence really deep and structural issues that really makes a difference when we talk about how prejudices are built. The same with what are doing big companies, what are doing different levels of government. Okay. Just to mention about the impact of the anti-rumors, there was this European project in 10 cities. There was an evaluation of the impact of the campaigns, and they detect a reduction of the relevance of few rumors, in which some people, before they say, we think, yeah, that this rumor is true, and after a few months, they say, okay, I couldn't now confirm seriously that this is true, okay? That was one of the most direct ways to evaluate some impact, but I'm really skeptical about this. And I think until now, it's been much more inspiring, many impacts that are more indirect in dealing with how journalists come to say, hey, thank you, because before I was interviewing with a politician and they were saying, okay, all the health system gets caught up with migration. Now I know this is not true, because we have now also some data, so data are important, and we can challenge this kind of thing, so thank you for doing this. We know how teachers in the schools that have included anti-rumor say, wow, we were educating our kids and we were not paying attention to the role of prejudices and the identities in our, and now with this kind of approach, we managed to really open a debate, amplify families, etc. So building strong partnerships, what I was saying, a lot of different projects, no connection, low impact. Network, much more people cooperating, the impact, that the feeling that we are doing something relevant and being more proactive, it's been a very important indicators. And basically beyond the usual suspects, I mean, not just NGO, not just the schools, and not just public libraries. A lot of new actors that before were not attracted, okay, there's no room for me here. You know, I was saying to my friends who are DJs or people who are in the art, but in a different way, said, hey, what about the anti-rumors? And now there is like, I don't know, in a club, Barcelona, they did one, the anti-rumors festival or whatever. So much more wider and diverse population gets targeted by this. Sustainability, keeping a self-critical approach to identify weaknesses. We have a lot of weaknesses. We share a lot of this. And one of the most important, I finish with this, is that our rumors, our efforts to dismantle rumors can actually reinforce them. So one of the main lessons we learn is that in our anti-rumor strategy, we need to forget about rumors somehow. So if there are these rumors about migrants are taking our jobs, they don't pay taxes, they do blah, blah. If you work on the frame of reference of those who want to talk about this, and you say, if you think that migrants are taking our jobs, maybe you don't know that, and then you give some complex information, people keep with the rumor. So we don't use rumors anymore as a communication thing. We go indirectly to promote that critical thinking. And we are full of anti-rumor agents in our society. You know, 3 years ago, no, two years ago, there were the terrorist attacks in Barcelona. And when we talk about communication and how human touch is so important regarding cold data, okay? So a child was killed on that terrorist attack. And these are the parents of that kid. And what these people did was to say, okay, I know this is going to increase the xenophobic reactions and the Islamophobic reactions. The first thing I need to do tomorrow is want to hack the imam from the mosque, from the city where the young terrorists were living from. So that image of the imam crying and the father of the guy killed, of the child kid, was such an anti-rumors powerful message, much more powerful than anything we could, the most creative mind could imagine. So we are also full of daily things that are really anti-rumors. We really need to be aware of that and to provide spaces and opportunities for more and more people to join forces and try to make things. Thank you very much. Sorry, talk too much.
Tak já poděkuji Danimu za obsáhlou přednášku, kterou vlastně uvedl celou naší konferenci. A poprosím teďka 3 zahraniční expertky, Siu Luke, Joannu Marcinkovskou a Michaelu Pobudovou, aby vlastně se k Danimu připojili tady na stage, s tím, že teďka budeme mít takový kratší 45-minutový blok, vlastně v rámci který bude takový více diskuzní. Zapojíte se i vy, diváci a divačky, vlastně do té návazné diskuze a vlastně ty 3 naše zahraniční expertky, Siu, Joanna a Michaela, představí vlastně odkud jsou a s jakou strategií nebo s jakým zajímavým konceptem, o který by se s námi chtěli podělit, přichází. Zároveň ke konci toho celého bloku budou na pořadu otázky a odpovědi, takže pokud máte nějaké otázky pro Daniho, tak vlastně všechny zodpovíme na konci tohohle panelu. Tak já teďka poprosím naše 3 expertky, aby se připojili k Danimu. A zároveň vám už tedy přenechám všem slovo, abychom nezdržovali. Tak.
Okay. Hi, Sue. I think you can. So, can you start? So, please.
Does that work now? Oh, good. Okay. I'll try and be as brief as possible. I wanted to share 2 examples. One is, I'll just remove this because it's annoying me. One is from, if you like, my professional practice, and one is from my political practice, because I'm a backbench councillor in a London local authority. There are 30-odd local authorities in London. And in that role, I'm what's called a migrant champion. But in real life, the way I earn my money, because backbench councillors don't, we're volunteers, if you like, we receive a small allowance and nothing more. I'm also a professional working in migration and have been for many years. So starting, if you like, with the professional side of things, I've done an awful lot of things. You can see toolkits I've written on the Integrating Cities website run by Eurocities and things like that. But I'm now involved in a project which has just got to a very interesting phase, and I thought it would be much more useful to have a discussion with you maybe about that. We're part of a large migration work, the social enterprise I work with, are part of a large partnership which includes 3 cities in the West Midlands in England. These are areas that are suffering a lot. They're areas that all voted to leave the European Union, which is often an indicator of a depressed economy and a sense of alienation, if you like, from politics and the economy and so on. And we have started a large project funded by the European Regional Development Fund to try and show how migrant creativity, enterprise and innovation may be one way in which that region can find its way into the 21st century. We're doing a lot of different things, supporting migrants within that and so on, working on employment, but the thing that we're working on is working with 15 migrants who have been competitively selected to develop social innovation projects in the region. In other words, projects that will benefit the communities in which they live. We've selected them, they've started work. Do ask me about my favorite project, which is science, a public education science project. But they cover all sorts of areas: housing, community development, science, culture, of course, and the arts and things like that. So the aim, of course, is then to be able to show that these migrants are benefiting the area, and we're just starting work on how it is that we communicate that best, working with the migrants themselves and with local journalists and politicians and so on. So that's one sort of thing I'd like to sort of show. In a sense, it's almost a laboratory. The idea is to see whether across a region we can change public attitudes on migration by encouraging migrants to do good things and then encouraging people to find out about them. Going across to the other side of my life, if you like, as a local politician, backbench councillors don't have much to do, by the way, in the British sort of local authorities. We're there to hold the rest of them to account. We don't have a budget or anything like that. So one of the things that backbenchers can do is become champions. We have champions, for example, for libraries, champions for people with dementia. And when I became a councillor last year, I put forward a proposal to become the first migrant champion within the UK. I'm glad to say that having become that, we're now breeding. We have another migrant champion in Oxford, and we're planning some more as well, because we have been publicising this and getting people to see the advantages of it. Thinking about the things that Dani was talking about, the importance of political leadership, the role of a champion really is to underpin and to maybe push a little the political leaders in terms of their commitment to migration, with quite a sort of a kind of a role across the piece. So what do I do as a migrant champion? I'm there as a channel for migrants to communicate with the local authority, to tell us when we're getting it wrong. A really, really important role, because we have two big crises around the role of local services and migration at the moment. One, you may have read about the Windrush scandal, because of thousands of people who migrated to the UK and have worked most of their lives, being refused services and so on because of problems with documentation created by government policy, some of whom have died, some have been deported or detained in the immigration detention system. We have residents directly affected by that. We need to represent their interests. And what has been described as Windrush on steroids, of course, is Brexit. We have thousands of European residents in our borough, and we're concerned that the chaos and bad faith, let's be honest, around the issues of Britain leaving the EU may leave many of them unable to exercise the rights they should have in the UK, and as a local authority, we want to be able to represent them. So what we do, if you like, I mean, I rely on the fact that our leadership is committed to a diverse borough, committed to representing the interests of all residents, and they have done a lot to promote, if you like, the interests of people affected by those two problems. We also need to ensure that what we learn from our residents is then transmitted into national policy, and that we use that in order to press government to be better in terms of migrant integration and the promotion of rights of migrants and the promotion of diversity and integration at local level. So I have been able to work with our leadership to promote, for example, our involvement in many legal cases. Most recent one has been because of the denial of the right to vote for many European residents by the government in the last European elections. And also to make representations at various different political levels, but also to keep going on presenting our borough as the sort of diverse and welcoming place that is dynamic and forward-facing and regards migrants, if you like, as a symptom of our success rather than as a problem. And so that does mean that I do an awful lot of those sorts of events. I'm sure you have them in Prague as well, where you know, you stand on the City Hall steps with a few banners and posters and, you know, and a few distinguished people and maybe a couple of media folk or whatever and say that you're doing something or there's some demonstration of that. I'm also promoting and developing a lot of policies around integration of migrants. So advice sessions done in cooperation with local organisations, meetings with migrant organisations and so on. And we also have a national network our borough has set up to support migrants who are destitute. And I think one of my favourite pieces of work, and do ask me more about it if you want, is that I work with the refugee committee of a local primary school. I don't know, I might just tell you very briefly about that. Our primary schools are children up to the age of 11, completely independently of anybody. This group of primary school children decided to set up a committee because they were worried about what was happening to refugee children in Europe and in the world. And then the committee decided to organise a delegation to the full council meeting in which children read out from their essays about why they were concerned about refugee children and told us that we needed to do more for them. We didn't take much persuading, actually, when you see a bunch of 6 to 11-year-olds turning up and telling politicians they need to do more. It's quite an impulse thing to do. So we've agreed that if the government lets them in, then we will take 100 refugee children over the next 10 years. These are unaccompanied children. And so the school has now moved on to putting pressure on the national government to let the children in. I had a fleeting moment of sympathy for the Home Secretary when they announced that. It hasn't lasted, but I'm hoping that you know, that the children will be successful because they are one of the best organised committees I've ever worked with. I go to their monthly meetings when I can, and it's absolutely amazing seeing an 8-year-old chairing a meeting and bringing it in on time and so on. So those are my 2 roles that I think might be of interest to discuss.
Thank you so much. So now it's time for Michaela Pobudová from Mareena in Slovakia, please.
Thank you very much. So my name is Miška, and I'm a co-founder and a director of a civic association called Mareena that works in Slovakia. We started out as a grassroots initiative in 2015 with the goal to support the resettlement of Syrian and Iraqi refugees to Slovakia. And slowly we have transformed into an actual NGO that works within the community to support the integration of foreigners. The main element that runs through our activities, or that we try to make sure that runs through our activities, is offer an opportunity for both locals and foreigners to get to know each other and interact with each other, because we believe that this is one of the most effective ways to really ensure that integration takes place. Overall, Mareena currently runs 4 programs of activities. We have a community program. We run regular events in our community center in Bratislava, but also in Košice and Nitra. We have a volunteering program where we match refugees with locals. We have a program focused on education and professional development of migrants, where we run Slovak language classes. We also run Arabic language classes for locals. We offer career guidance and a mentoring program for foreigners. And the 4th program, that's a very recent one, and a part of that I'm going to then describe in more detail, is an awareness raising program. Doing these 3 first programs, or running them, we realized that there's a limited number of foreigners and refugees in Slovakia, as you may know. And therefore, in order to sort of spread the message of integration and a support for diverse communities, we need to start talking to people about it. So we started running some informal interactive educational sessions for mostly students at high schools and universities, but we're hoping that that will spread in the future. So the project that I would like to focus more on is something that I've been asked by the organizers to introduce, and that's our awareness-raising campaign called Cudzincov mám plné zuby. Just a disclaimer before we go any further, after watching Dani's presentation, I'm not sure that we're best practice, but it's a pilot thing that we tried and we have learned a lot from. So I'm sure that next time we're running something, it's going to be much better and much closer to what you have described already. So the slogan of the campaign is "Cudzincov mám plné zuby," which in English, the closest translation is "We are fed up with foreigners," which is statistically true for Slovakia. And it's sort of a play on words because it means that we are upset with foreigners, but at the same time that we're being fed foreign food or we're being fed by foreigners. So we have basically chosen the topic of food as the sort of the element of this campaign. And the reason why we've even thought about running a campaign was twofold for us as an NGO. First of all, we realized that in order to increase our impact, we need to reach a broader audience. And to do that, it's good to have a sort of a communication campaign that has a coherent message. You know, boosting posts on Facebook, it's got just a limited impact and you can only count on it for so long. So we thought something with a coherent message, something bigger that we would get into the media would be a better way. And the second reason was that, so we were working directly in integration and we felt that we needed to bring a fresh narrative to the topic of integration. Because in Slovakia, it's a sort of a heavy topic with boundless negative connotations. So we thought what would be really good to bring into this would be something that's positive, something that has a universal theme that could be understood even beyond the topic of integration, and at the same time, ideally has this kind of a humorous edge to it, because we thought that that's one of the disarming elements of any campaign that we have seen and that we've liked within the Mareena team. So we've brainstormed a lot, and yeah, food came victorious out of this. And we launched this campaign on the International Refugee Day in June. We've kind of established cooperation with about 10 influencers known mostly in Slovakia, some musicians, an advisor to the president. We also had the mayor of Bratislava. He's up for anything fun, which we're happy about. And we encouraged them to put our T-shirt on with the slogan, to go and have some foreign food or take a picture with a person who makes their foreign food or with a foreigner that they know and like, and write a supportive message about foreigners living in Slovakia using a hashtag plné zuby. And that's something that we launched in June, but this campaign sort of has several stages that it has grown into, and it has pretty much taken a life of its own. Right now we're at a point when we're preparing a food map of Bratislava that basically details all restaurants that offer foreign cuisine and that are either run by a foreigner, owned by a foreigner, or a foreigner cooks there. So maybe I might have run out of my 5-minute limit, but with regards to impact, I think what we have certainly achieved is we have gained a much higher reach than what we've had before. And there was a growing interest in our organization by a variety of people that we haven't reached in the past. And there are a lot of sort of cooperations that we were approached with thanks to this campaign. What is much more difficult, I think, to assess is to what extent our campaign has had an impact on attitudes. But yeah, maybe that's something that we can discuss in the discussion.
Thank you so much. I'm Joanna from Reykjavik. Your turn.
Yeah, hello. My name is Joanna, and I'm not actually Icelandic. I have been immigrant there for 14 years, so I'm not typically Icelandic name or after-name, which they are all daughters or sons of somebody. And I have been working in the Human Rights Office of Reykjavik for the last 7 years, and had been working as an immigrant specialist or some integration specialist. So in my work, I talk really a lot about my own experience, because I had been going through all of the stages of immigration, like it is like it's supposed to be, actually. So there had been a honeymoon and hard times and ups and downs. And I think it is very relevant to work when I work on an issue, and I actually can refer to my personal experience. The office exists for the last 12 years, and it is an office under the office of the mayor. So we are like situated in the middle of the administration, which makes it good and bad, because we have limited access to the big departments, which is kind of, I think, sometimes works like a ministries in the countries. But on the other side, we have the will of the mayor to actually function, which of course helps this political support. And the office works because there is the human rights policy, which city agreed to work on 12 years ago. And for a long time we were struggling as a pet project, and it is often on coming out, although you think, how can you call human rights a pet project? But it kind of, there are many more important things which people think are much more important, while actually human rights is a basic of it all. And I would like to name like two things. One, the thing which I'm going to lead the tomorrow workshop about. And I do agree with Michaela. After listening to Dani, I have a lot of worries about it. But okay. I would like just to point out that we have functioning in Reykjavik the Intercultural Council, which we had been on for 10 years and has been many changes, good practices, bad practices, how it works. But now there is both two political members and three NGO members. And in my opinion, it works best because we get the NGO like a setup is not actually, it didn't work for us. And the main emphasis of the council is are three themes. It is immigrant children, immigrant or foreign employees of the city, and accessibility, like in a wide range. We are talking about the services and about the access to society. And in the spring, the council was having a meeting with the city council, and they just decided to go big and came up with 5 proposals, and they were introduced, and we are working on it right away. So we managed actually finally to come into doing instead of just talking about the issues. And the workshop, it was actually ordered by the, how to call it, like a B company of the city, the Reykjavik Energy. They noticed that there's a lot of kind of talking in the coffee places at work when people are really negative about the immigrants and LGBTQ plus people and disabled people. So they came to us, and the city is a stakeholder in this company. So they felt like we should work together on it. So we designed this out of the human rights policy. And we had to sell it to the employees. So we couldn't say prejudice education or discrimination education because nobody would want to go there probably. So we use this sentence which we often hear when you talk about human rights and you talk about politically correctness. Just can't I say or do anything anymore because everything what I say is not correct. So we used it and it actually worked. And we managed to educate all of the employees of this company, both from the high levels, manager levels, to the street workers. And we came up with talking about it as as just the respect. We don't talk about what is correct or not correct to do. We just came up out of your feelings. How would you like to be treated? And point out and concentrate on everyday discrimination, racism, which is actually not people who are belonging to majority groups don't recognize them even because they never experience them. And then we went on with this, and we did it for the employees of the city also. And as I say, there were ups and downs. There are things which we had to change after some experiences which we decided not work. And talking about the numbers, actually, Daniel, works sometimes. It works when you talk about people with the people from financial department. So you have to have a big knowledge of actually all the researches which has been made, so you could actually refer. And yeah, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. I think they're really good and inspiring experiences, and I feel so guilty to be talking too much. So I think if maybe before we start a debate here, a conversation, what do you think if we just maybe give the floor to the questions of public first to these projects, and then we can talk more about things. But I think I wouldn't forgive myself if you don't have time to make direct questions. So if it's okay for you, maybe you can, we can do some questions at the same time, if there are any. Yeah, there's there, also here. Okay.
Hello, my name's Tom Dams. I work for an NGO here in Prague, supporting with the integration of refugees, but like Sue, I'm originally from the UK. And my question for the panel really is related to best practices. And I think, speaking from my own experience, growing up in the UK, what I saw was that immigration has been taking place obviously for many decades, mostly from Commonwealth countries. And I think we like to believe that we were a very multicultural, very tolerant society. And I think, as Sue alluded to, I think Brexit kind of turned that on its head a little bit. It made us realize that maybe we weren't. And I think the rumors that Danny was talking about was particularly true there. The rumors spread, and a lot of fear about immigration, I think, is what possibly was maybe one of the reasons that fueled actually the result that we saw to leave the EU. So with that in mind, I was just thinking, from what we've learned from other European countries, such as the UK, such as Germany, such as Spain, who've seen a large level of immigration over many years, but maybe not with a great deal of success, some success, but also some failures. What are the key lessons for a country like Czech Republic, where immigration on a larger scale is something relatively new? What are the key lessons that a country like Czech can take from other experiences that have happened in other countries?
So you have one. That's a very big and relevant question. Should we answer this right now, or should we get? Yeah. Is it?
Yeah, I say go ahead and yeah.
Yes, I mean, I'd contest your narrative on the UK. What's interesting is that over the last 2 or 3 years, the tide has turned in terms of public opinion on migration. And there's very clear evidence from regular polls that are taken that whereas 5 years ago, generally if you asked people if migrants had a positive effect on the economy and on culture, the majority of UK residents said they had a negative effect. The majority now say they have a positive effect, and that's an effect that is universal. I mean, by age group, by educational level, by region, by economic status. So something has happened in the UK that has turned that tide. And I think there are 2 things that have happened, and I'm afraid I'm going to put my migration hat on for one and my politician's hat on for the other. My migration hat says that what has happened is that a lot of patient work that has been going on at local level is finally beginning to bite. These things don't happen immediately. You can't publish a newspaper article and expect people to change their minds. But a lot of the sort of things that Dani is talking about that aren't necessarily developed anti-Rumour strategies, but are a lot of these sorts of things about let's eat together, let's do things together, let's get people doing things together simply as residents, not as migrants doing something specifically migranty, has actually meant that people meet real migrants and interact with them and stop thinking of them as a scary other and start thinking of them as the person down the street. I would say the government's also had it's been an unintended effect also of government policy, which was that in the year 2000, government decided that all asylum seekers had to be dispersed around the country. Before, they were very largely focused in London and the southeast. And that has meant that people have met all sorts of very different migrants. You know, we've had diversity in our cities very often, but it's often been quite a sort of polar thing where you might have one or two big ethnic minority communities, many of them settled, many of them second, third generation. But now you have hyperdiversity in many of our cities, and that again changes perceptions. So that's one thing that has happened, is just if you keep doing it and keep reflecting and keep being creative, it does work eventually. But I would say there is a political side to this, and I'm afraid I have to say this, which is it's about people identifying what the problem is that they want to solve. And as Dani says, if people are continuously told by politicians, by the media, et cetera, that migration is the problem, then obviously what they want to do is get rid of migrants. But if you then have an alternative narrative that says, no, the problem is not that, you know, the presence of migrants didn't close your libraries. The presence of migrants didn't close your hospitals. The presence of migrants didn't disinvest from public housing. And you begin to have a significant political narrative that says, actually, we have solutions to those problems. We'd like you to sign up to them and vote for them. And what we saw in the general election in 2017 was actually, that's exactly what people did. You know, a massive swing, if you like, towards a party that said, no, we reject the narrative that migrants are causing the problem. We are identifying the people who are causing the problem, and we want you to vote for us to get them out. Didn't win. But we did win in a lot of local authorities, and we did win, and you know, we're on course, I hope, to win the next general election. So providing a narrative of hope, if you're a politician, is one very, very important thing to do. That a politician is committed to the sort of active listening about what the problems are, and then actually, you know, produces viable solutions to those problems. It means people shift their gaze from the scary other, often a shadowy scary other, you know, that they don't really know, to the perpetrators of the real problems and start thinking about how to solve them. Can I just, one other thing, just if you're working in the Czech lands, I think it's also important to talk about migration as a phenomenon that is out as well as in. And that is just, I mean, I think I've seen some very interesting work in Italy done on this, you know, because of Italian migration in particular to the Americas. And I think it's important to think about people's experiences in relation to migration as part of their family history. I'm saying this from a very personal point of view because last night I had a drink with my cousin. My father left Prague at the age of 10 in 1939. So I have cousins here and also all over the world. And I think, you know, reinstating migration as being part of the experience of Czech people and thinking about how people felt when they went to other countries and how they were treated. I meet a lot of Czech migrants in the UK. I'd like to hear their experiences thought about and talked about here, because I think that's a very good way in to opening a conversation that is much easier to have about how migrants want to be treated.
Thank you so much. Do you want to complement briefly this before our actions?
Yeah, just quickly. I'm most certainly not an expert on this issue. And I agree with what Sue said, but maybe seeing what's happening in Slovakia, what I would advise maybe my government with regards to experiences abroad is that certainly they cannot or we cannot count on integration taking place by itself. I think we need to invest into into proper integration services and support community organizations similar to ours that are trying to be catalysts of this integration. And all this coupled with a positive communication strategy that should be coming from up down, I think. And that's something that I think Slovakia is behind in a lot.
Joanna.
Well, I think local level is plays a lot. I mean, government tends to be nowadays not really pro integration, or you know how the situation is in Europe. So we experience it also in Iceland. Iceland has been a homogeneous society. Actually, till 2000 there was a 2.5% immigration, and it all of a sudden went up, and really much after the 2004, after the new countries came to the European Union, and then there was a crisis, and everybody thought, oh, the people will just go home, and the thing is solved. We are back to the old, but it didn't happen, and it has been growing now, and it is over 40,000 foreigners living now in Iceland. But and as a now I lost the word. As a capital, the Reykjavik, the biggest city, and actually the only city in Iceland, you can say, because all of the others are so small. We do play a lot in this integration issues. So I think you have to concentrate on the education, because you know the integration doesn't happen from the level of government level. It happens from the people's level.
Thank you so much, Joanna. I think instead of answering me, I prefer to leave more opportunity for other questions. I think
hello, my name is Nasruddin. Come from Greece. I have from Solomon organization, non-profit organization, that in 2017, as I saw the news that 3 countries reject refugee relocations. One of those countries are Slovakia. From that time until today, what was the reaction of locals and local authority, local people, and what is the maybe is there any changing government change policies for refugees? And the number of the refugees they are asylum seeker or refugee, or how much, I don't know. I want to ask, is there change the policy of the government for the refugees? But as I know, because I'm working also at the same time in Greek Council for Refugees, we are working for family reunification. Unfortunately, or we didn't hear that someone family member has come to Slovak to reunification. How is the asylum service working in the government policy, if is there changes? Thank you.
Thank you. So we currently have a government that was elected to office in March 2016. So basically, they have been consistent in their approach to refugees. We have rejected relocations and so on, though some relocations have taken place. I think about around 20 people have been relocated. Those relocations have not been that successful. We have had some secondary migration outside of Slovakia of those people that we have taken in. When it comes to the reaction of Slovak public, I think there's been a general agreement with the policies of the government, because I think Slovak public generally sees refugees as, we're more on the negative side towards accepting or non-accepting. There are just pockets of people that are sort of more pro-refugees or more pro-resettlement and relocation. And all these relocations have, the small number that have actually taken place, they mostly took place under the radar of people. So I I would take a bet that not many people actually know that we have taken anybody through a relocation process. Yeah, I think the government policies have not changed, or not that I know of. But we have elections coming up, and if the opposition would come into power, there will be more voters voting for the opposition parties. I believe there could be change, but that's not, so far it doesn't, it's sort of a 50-50, maybe more in the favor of the ruling party at the moment.
Okay, thank you so much. We have 2 minutes. Is there a last question someone really wants to? Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm Vera Bars from ICP, and I've got a very silly, very little question for Mr. de Torres. I'm just dying to know about this elevator situation. You, or for that matter, trained anti-Rumour agent, how would you respond to a remark like that, so that you leave an open way for the positive communication?
That's an 8 hours training. No, it's okay. I mean, but when I ask people, what would you do? Honestly, if we would do this session now, it's like 1 hour, and if I ask you really, think about what could you say to this neighbor, just to say, okay, to show that you don't agree that much on that, and that you want to start a conversation, probably providing another perspective that maybe can challenge the his or her comment and belief, but at the same time that you can keep the positive feeling that allows you to talk again about this next time. If I will do this exercise with you, you will come up with all the right answers. And that's very important, because at the end, it shows that this is not something so complicated we need to study to know. No. It's somehow some common sense that for some reason we haven't been training in it. We haven't been really aware of that. There's one, of course, obvious thing. It's about asking questions. Asking questions is one of the best tools and strategies that you can have to make the other person concrete a bit more, to really realize that you were making a generalization, so you can identify contradictions. You can also challenge generalizations. You can share personal stories. So there is, like, we can say 10 examples of criteria of things that you can do that put more the emphasis on the similarities and the common interests and needs. You can put it human touch. When they call all these Chinese, you say, okay, Chun-Li from the shop behind, and you call a person, and suddenly this person realized that he's been generalizing, and that was what he wanted to do, because many times we say things without really thinking twice. So one goal is make the other person realize about that. Well, I make this comment. I know it's not like that, because we do this also all the time, because we need to, and it simplifies things. But in this topic, it makes these serious consequences. So we need to have a more active role on saying, okay, we can complain about politicians, we can complain about media, but it also starts with us in our daily life. So there are some resources and a lot of things to this, but it's also interesting to leave you with some questions so you can ask yourself, what do you think would be more effective? Sorry, I give time for last question. It has to be really fast, otherwise I go.
My question would be really quick and short, but I don't know if the answer will be. I think there is very typical issue that happens in the Czech Republic, and first I would be curious if it happens in other countries as well. It happened a terminology shift, I call it. Is that lots of people have been called by a general terminology that doesn't exactly fit, and people are not able to orientate themselves. To make it concrete, we have foreigners, we have migrants, we have refugees, whatever. And when in 2005 the refugee crisis started, a common rhetoric started to be very clear in the Czech Republic saying that those young people there with apples are not refugees, but they are economical migrants. And everybody just started to kind of think of economic migrants like of these people, but they are not aware what exactly an economical migrant is. So we've got political campaigns saying that we do not want economical migrants here, even though Czech economy is lately quite fueled by workers from abroad. And my question is, how is it possible, how to work on to shift it back, to make clear for people who is a foreigner, who is an economical migrant, who is a refugee, and to create a counter discourse, not in order to convince people of anything, just to help them have clear in this terminology. Thank you.
Very quickly, I'm old, so I remember all these changes in terminology, and my advice is don't get hung up on them, really. When I resettled refugees in the 1970s, refugees were terribly keen to tell everybody they weren't economic migrants, they were refugees because they were good migrants. Then, you know, refugees became unpopular and it was much better to be an economic migrant. For a while, we loved international students and now we hate them. I mean, it's, I would say that you have to start from the premise that if there was no migration, we would still be living on that plain in Africa because that's where we're all from. And we need to say that all sorts of migrations happen in healthy countries and healthy economies. Governments can change the names refugees and migrants are called. They can change the terms and conditions under which they live. But it's probably the economy, by and large, that determines who gets here and who doesn't. And that it's best to not get hung up on the terminology because it will change. And people who are anti-migrant will shift it according to what they want to, you know, to move it on. And sometimes getting into these long explanations doesn't really advance anything. It's much better, as Dani says, to ask and say, so what is it you've got against people who move from one country to another to work? What is it you've got against people who move from one country to another to be safe? You know, what's the problem for you here? Why is it a problem for you? But I don't think the terminology really matters. It shifts all the time. And it's always, you know, it's always a negative thing that it's presented as.
Just really quick, because we are talking about the words in our program, because we tend to destroy them. What something was okay just a few years ago, now it is very negative, so it is actually our fault. And as you say, refugees, asylum seekers, immigrants, economic migrants. I really love the sentence which I just, terminology which I just heard newly, and then it was says, well, does it really matters? We are all just Icelanders speaking different languages. So just make it out, you know, put it up together, I think.
I think the situation is the same in Slovakia. We're very much, always a copy-paste in many issues. And yeah, I mean, I don't have an answer at all. What we try to do is try to explain what each term means and try to give it in the most sort of neutral and descriptive way possible. But I quite like the tips here about getting beyond labels and just talk about people and just, yeah, not use migrant, economic migrant, refugee, and so on.
Okay, I think that's a great way to finish this session. I'm so sorry, there's more. We can keep talking on the coffee break because otherwise it's going to kill me, honestly. I know your interest now, but we need to finish, right? Or
yes, we do. And I'm really sorry I'll have to be the party pooper, but we do have a schedule. We're going to have 15-minute break. Thank you very much to our panelists, speakers. It was really interesting talk. And as Dani already mentioned, all of them are staying through the conference, so please take advantage and grab them once they have their coffee and continue with these conversations. We'll also have a very long lunch break and we'll hear until the late afternoon. Short coffee break, coffee and little refreshments are over there in the library, right corner. And then don't forget to also mingle and roam around the big room over there where you can see the interesting videos and presentations. And we'll meet shortly here. Thank you.